Hi guys, welcome back. I want to show you an example and talk to you a little bit about how to do a line cleanup. And I'm going to show you the traditional method on how to do that. I found a sample here I thought I'd show you. This is a line cleanup that I did. It's actually on normal 11 by 17 crappy Xerox paper. And I ended up scanning this in later, but I want to zoom in here. This is a really good example. I want to try to get pretty close in here to show you some thick and thin line quality in this piece. Okay, you'll notice that there are nice thick heavy weighted lines along the outside, and then any interior lines are nice and thin. Okay, the lines down here on the ground plane, it's a tiled floor, they're nice and thin. Okay, this particular example I'm showing you, this is sort of a cartoony show that I worked on for a little bit, and it's actually nice to see because there's some changes in perspective happening here on purpose. These picture frames are a little bit out of perspective. Some of the angles on the floor tile are a little bit wonky, but the basic rules of perspective are still there. There's still a horizon line right here in the piece. Everything that's underneath that we can see on top of. For example, we can see on top of the desk, we can see on top of this, on top of these items here, and then everything above it we're sort of looking underneath that. So let me just try to zoom in here and see if I can get some of this line detail for you, and just move this piece around here so you can get a good idea. Look at the blinds, thick exterior lines, really thin interior lines. Okay, so even though this is a wonky show, this style of cleanup still applies to a lot of different shows and a lot of different projects, and especially if you're going to get into working in Photoshop. You know, some people work digitally and paint digitally, but they also draw with 2D traditional medium, and I should say media, and then they come back on top of that and they clean up, or they do a quick contour line drawing of the rough, and then they scan that into Photoshop and start working from that. So I wanted to show this to you as a demo right here, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back into this piece that we did in marker right here, and I'm going to do this in Prisma Color pencil as a cleanup for you. And before I dive into that, I wanted to show you a couple brands of tracing paper that I like to use. This first brand here is by Ben Feng. It's called Parchment 100 tracing paper. Okay, if I'm right, this is the brand that also comes in different sheets. Okay, it says for pencil, pen, markers, charcoal, and pastel. Okay, so that works really great. This is one of my favorite brands, Utrecht. Let me zoom out right here for you. Utrecht is a company that's actually from the Netherlands, and now they have a huge store that they sell stuff everywhere, and they actually are a linen company that used to sell linens back in the day. And I don't know how they've managed to pull it off, but the quality of this paper for tracing paper, it's similar to the other brand, but I've been drawing with it, and I really like this Utrecht brand. This is another brand too. This is Canson. Okay, basic tracing paper. This has a little bit different type of sheen to it, which is really nice. Okay, so that works really well for cleanups. And here's another brand. I only have it in a large size. This is Vellum. Okay, this is it's an orange cover here. The company is called Clearprint, and if you open it up, it's like tracing paper, but 2 to 3 times as thick. Okay, and this stuff is expensive, folks. One of these pads usually is around $30 to $40 US for the big vellum pads. Okay, so it's not necessarily that you have to get into using vellum. I think tracing paper works just fine. It's a personal preference. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on this Canson tracing paper. It just so happens that I've been using it for a while, and all I do to do a cleanup, it's actually pretty simple, because I just take my paper, I fold it over, I throw my rough underneath here and I just start to clean it up. You know, I tape my rough down. So I'm going to take this rough right in here and take a little piece of some blue removable tape and apply it on each edge here. Okay, just to hold my image down. And then I flip my tracing paper over it. And what I'm going to do for you is, you know, a really sort of cool thick and thin line cleanup on that. And then I also am going to come into it. As a reminder, remember I told you guys about how I fold these right here on the end. I fold it and put that crease in it first. And the reason why I do that is if I don't and I fold it all the way over like that, see, you can see right there it's separating the glue and the binding and it destroys the pad. So by folding it like that, it keeps it nice and steady for me. Okay, so now that that's done, I'm just going to jump into this and start drawing for you. Let me get my camera lightly adjusted here and make sure I'm up. So let me show you a couple tools that I use, okay, for when I'm sketching, doing my cleanup here. So Prisma Color pencil, I mentioned these to you before. So here's a basic pencil. Here's what the old box used to look like. I think they have a new box now. And this is a common tool I use with this, my electric eraser, different brands of erasers. Here are some other tools. I don't know if I showed you this, but I use these all the time. This is a Pentel click eraser. It's refillable. You just push that eraser in, it clicks back, and this is really convenient. A lot of times I even take a razor blade. Actually, this has a knobby end on it, so I'll just do a little demo for you. I take my razor blade like so, and I just come in at an angle like that, and I just chop a chunk off, and I end up getting a nice sort of, let me put that there on my hand so you can see it, a nice round edge on it that's at an angle that acts as a great eraser. Another tool that I use, it's another eraser, but it has a much thinner piece that goes in it. This is great for getting little details. This is made by a company called Sanford. It's called the Tough Stuff Eraser Stick. So that's Tough Stuff Eraser Stick. Okay? And then outside of that, what I do is I just basically start off, you know, and I have a pencil right here. What's great about tracing paper is it doesn't even look like I have anything over my original right now, what I do. It really shines, allows the image underneath to come right through. And it's really fantastic. It's great. And there's actually a drawing style that I'm going to show you in a little bit that involves working with this tracing paper. Okay, so I'm going to come in here right now and start knocking out this rough for you and talking about thick and thin line cleanup. So just a little review right before I dive into this thing here. Talk about thick and thin. What is thick and thin? Thick and thin, a lot of you that went to art school or had some training, thick and thin is also known as contour line. This is thick and thin, okay? When I start with a nice thick line by pressing hard on my pencil, and then I get up and get a nice thin little edge, and then I come back, it almost dissipates, and then I come back and get a nice thick edge in there again, okay? Let me see if I can't zoom in a little bit into this just to show you a little bit here. Okay. Now the reason why this is important, this is commonly taught in figure drawing, is that, you know, having that is too overwhelming. It's too strong. Sometimes you can have thick lines like this and then thin lines inside. Okay, and that can help show detail quite a bit, but a lot of times what you want to do is you want to have thick and then thin and thick and thin and these nice lighter lines sort of rolling off, and this ends up reading very well in terms of detail. So I just thought I'd show you that super quick before I dive into this, because that's exactly what I do in a cleanup like this. So I'm going to go ahead and just start up here, and I'm going to end up, I apologize, I'm going to be tossing my drawing around back and forth to get the angle of my wrist that best works in here. But I'm going to start right here and just sort of come in and okay. So I don't know if you notice it, but when I'm going to press down and make that line right there, I'm pressing down with a lot more weight in the beginning, and then as I pull up, I'm definitely thinning out some of my weight. Something else I'm doing that you might notice is I'm rolling my pencil, because if I had to draw this up for you really quick, these Prismacolor pencils get real soft, and here's my tip of my pencil. Okay. After I make a line, I have that point, so if I roll it a little bit, the next time I go to make a line, that point is facing down and gives me a nice crisp line until I get to there again, and then I roll the pencil over and use that side again. Okay, so that's really just a little strategy there that I do when I work on my line cleanups. Okay, and of course I have to jump back over and hit my pencil sharpener on a regular basis. So luckily I actually unplugged it to get all these lights in here. So I added like 4 more lights around my drawing table here. And I have some pencils I'm just going to keep pre-sharpened here. Oh, and I just made a mistake. I grabbed a blue pencil because I can't see. My bad. Let me go in there, take that off, come back in here. And even when I get down to a little pencil like this, I have this extender right here, and it just slides right in there. And I usually put a little round eraser tip on the end of my extender. Okay. So it takes some practice to get in here and do these types of line drawings. A real great method for drawing once you've drawn for quite a few years is turning your pencil on its side. The reason why is when you're drawing with your wrist, you only have this radius right here. You're barely a 180, versus when I draw like this, I'm using my whole shoulder, so I have complete 360-degree rotation to establish line and line quality. So I'm just going to come in here and keep going over my line. I'm going to tape down the corner of my pad real quick. Give me a second here. It's not good. There we go. The corner of my pad kept hitting something on my desk and the paper was knocking up, moving it. So I got that taken care of. And this is tracing paper, so it's highly erasable, okay, which is fantastic with Prismacolor. So I'm just going to come in here and continue to thicken thin objects. I have students before that have used this, and some of them come back and they hate it. It's a personal preference to want to use tracing paper and a Prismacolor pencil. I personally love it. Some people don't have the ability to come in and just draw nice, thick and thin and be pressure sensitive. They just have big, thick, steady lines all the time, and I don't know. I don't really have that issue. I like being able to get these nice, thick and thin lines coming off of an image. It conveys a lot, you know, in there. And I do know a couple people that are actually really proficient at doing this in Sketchbook Pro. I think it just takes a little bit more practice. So I'm going to stop talking and just try to stay focused in here for a few minutes. And what I'll do is I'll see if I can do a little bit of work and then pause it and show you what I have and try to speed things up, because some of you aren't aware, but if you've gotten to this point of the lecture, you've already gone through about 3 hours worth of lecture. So some important stuff to cover I wanted you guys to be aware of, you know. Okay, and let me come down here and just sort of. So anything on an interior line, I try to get lighter and not press too heavy. Sometimes just even almost like the weight of the pencil, just really thin. You know, that's having a sensitivity to it. Any interior lines nice and thin. Exterior lines can get heavy. And if you don't connect on an edge or something, no worries. Okay. You know, this isn't... I have students wig out about that stuff sometimes. There's not the Prisma Color police waiting to come get you. You know? The Gestapo tracing paper police that are going to find you. It's not like that. I always have students come back and they're like, I wasn't doing it right. I'm going to get in, you know, I was going to get in trouble. I need to stay, my lines are getting too thin and it didn't look correct. And I'm like, just, gosh, don't worry about it. It's a line cleanup, you know? It's not the end of the world. Okay, sometimes I tend to smear a little bit, so what I do when I smear is I take a blank piece of paper like so, this one I was using earlier, and what I do is I just fold it in half like this. Okay, I have two problems. One, I'm a natural hot body where I'm always sort of hot, and so I tend to sweat a little bit on my palms. So I either make sure I keep my hands washed and clean, and then the other thing is what also helps me is having a little piece of paper like this so I can keep my arm on it. They sell some plastic platforms that I've seen people use, but I don't know. I don't think I need anything like that. Sometimes I clean something up and I come back later and go, oh, why did I do that for? So, get to another pencil here. Have an exterior line here. Start it off a little thicker. Then thin it out. Okay. And, you know, Prisma Color is a wax content pencil. It's not like I had a little mistake there. It's not like a normal pencil that's made of lead that has a glue filler in it. So this wax can be brittle and it can break and it can be frustrating. So if that happens to you, then don't worry about it, you know. Try to keep this closer so you can see me doing this. I tend to drop into the picture frame sometime by accident. Drop out of the picture frame. Okay. I have this. Oh, I made a little mistake there. See, look at that. It just pulls it right off. Made that line back there a little too, a 1/16 too thick. broom in here, again, thick and thin. Gives me a real chance to have nice lost and found edges here. I apologize, I looked up and noticed that I'm going off of the page there. Okay, let me sharpen some pencil. So if some of you are wondering, when I work for a client, do I have to go in and do this every single time? No. It just depends what. Now I've gotten to the point where part of my rough ends up becoming my cleanup. Just from practice and just doing it so many times. You just draw right into this. What I'm going to do is, when I finish this, I'm going to take it into tone and show you how this technique works awesomely for, that's a new word, awesomely, for incredibly for values, okay? The majority of people that do this technique use it for that purpose, okay? I just noticed I put a little crooked line on there in that book. I'm going to fix it real quick. Alright. So I'm going to go ahead at this point, just to show you where I'm at. I'm going to take my little white piece of paper here and slide it under there, and you can see how my line quality is starting to look. So I'm going to, so I don't bore you to death, I'm going to go ahead and pause right here, and after I'm going to finish what I'm working on right in here, and then I'll pause, and then I'll come back with it all finished, just to save us a little bit of time, because this can be a little bit tedious. And I don't know, what was I going to put on that thing? Some type of weird vase or something. And I was going to put another book here. I worked for a studio once where I had to do about, what was the average per week? I think it was about 10 to 16 drawings of environments, and I had to come in on a Thursday evening and Friday, and clean every one of them up like this so they could go to the paint department to be painted the next day. And I haven't done it for a while unless I'm working on my own thing. But man, you could see how fast you can get if you had to do this on a regular basis. Okay? You just start picking up some really cool line quality because you start working so fast and you start moving incredibly quickly. The edge of the desk comes out a little bit right there. Like so. And going to have a couple tools. sitting in on part of the shelf maybe. Oh, I made a little mistake there. Okay. And I had another tool here. Put some other tool element there. I'm going to come in here real quick and put the base. Sorry, I'm trying to get the best angle for my hand here. So why don't I stop right there? I'll finish cleaning this up and then I'll bring it back and show you what I have. Okay, that way I don't keep you and bore you too much. We save a little bit of time. So I cleaned up a couple little things in here to speed up a little bit of time. I'm going to go ahead and finish up some of this in here. Okay, let me see if I can zoom in so you guys can, I want to try to get a little bit of line quality in there. I'm going to show you what I did with this barrel, how I can see the individual pieces of wood in there, just to give it a little bit more detail. Okay. And now I'm going to come over here and make a piece of rope. And you know what? Just to make sure I pull this off right, I'm going to use my old handy French curve in here. And just to make sure I get this working pretty good, because I want it to have the right angle on it. So if we're doing a cleanup, this can come in handy. And sort of come in here lightly. Okay. Really lightly like that. And then I'm going to come in here in a second. I'm going to modify it a little bit. I got a little bit thicker over here than I wanted it to, so I'm going to fix that real quick. Like that. Okay. Erase out little segments there so I can overlap this. Put like a little clothespin in here. Just like that. Made that little too thin there. And something important here, just understanding my horizon lines here, so I'm looking down on these. So I want to make sure if I do have a fold in there, that it's making sense in the direction that it's folded over with that. Because I don't want to be looking up at it and seeing a fold like this. That wouldn't be taking place. Okay. That's not too blown out. Wrap a little bit of a rope around here. I'm going to come in and put the grooves of the rope in there. Oops. Making a lot of mistakes tonight. Now we're going to bring this down, come over here and finish up this chimney here. And I never really finished if I was going to have stone or whatnot in there, so let me figure this out as I go into it. Now's where I need to make a little bit of that decision. So I might do a little bit of stone mixed in. Be able to see underneath and on the side of the stone. I need to fix this part here in this overhang. Okay. Pretty cool. Okay. Ruler away. And then I'm going to finish up back here. I have this post hanging out of there. I just thought that could be an extra element just to add a little bit of detail on there. I'm really putting some stylized rope in there just to have some fun with it. I'm going to put one more loop. Why? Because things in threes usually look better. Now watch, getting a little bit of a tangent next to this here, so I'm just going to pull that back a little. Just like that, okay? And then I might even just, for the fun of it, throw the rope up, go into here. Okay. Alright, cool. Something like that. Alright, now I'm just going to come in and pencil a little bit in the ground here and I'll be finished up. So let me zoom out a little bit for you guys. Okay, and I'll just come in here, and I'm going to try to keep this nice and loose. I don't want it to be too definitive of a line drawing, so this is where I'm just going to put the pencil sort of on its side and see what I get out of this. I was having some type of walkway shape between here. So maybe this is some type of grass that's hanging around here. Fix some of these lines a little bit later. I just want some type of rough trace line back here to indicate that there's something back there. I am not indicating if that's an exact horizon line yet. I don't know. It could be a different ground plane. Just having something that's there. Oops. I'm not quite sure what's gonna, maybe that's a rock of some kind. There's just some type of dirt that fades off here. Maybe I'll come in here and throw in what looks like another rock. Okay. And here, I had a little bit of hay up here. Let me put what looks like maybe a little bit of a roof tile. Maybe one's out a little bit more than the other. A little bit zigzagged off. There, that's pretty cool. Okay, and then here's sort of the golden part where I come over, and I want to see exactly what I have. I'm going to remove some of the tape in the corner here, but I ended up peeling off the corner, but that's all right. Okay, and I'm going to remove the image that I have back down here. Okay, fill this up, come back here, fill this back. Paper down, voila. And there, folks, is our finished line drawing for right now. What I'm going to do is take a quick break, and I'm going to come in and scan it. Okay, and then I'm going to jump back into it, and I'm going to do a tonal for you. Okay, but I wanted to show you another approach to doing a line drawing. Let me see if I can zoom in here just to show you a little bit of detail in some areas. I like this door here. Let's see if this focuses. Something you can do that's really nice with these pencils, if I was just treating in a line drawing, is I can come in and just lightly take this with a nice sharp tip there, okay, and sort of put a little bit of wood grain on that door, maybe a little bit going on this side. Okay, it just adds a little bit more to the drawing there. Okay, I have the option of even coming over here. I can add a little bit of that in here too. Then I'm going to flow with the perspective. So as the wood grain perhaps comes up here, and it goes across there. Okay, I have this broom here. So I might wrap that broom with a couple rubber bands, just to show a little bit more indication of what it's doing there. Alright. Tighten up a little bit of the outside lines here. Okay. Make sure some of this is making sense here. I have this line back here, it's going to drop. So I'm going to see that line there. I'm going to see part of that line here. And I might even recess some of this now around the side of the house there. Like that. To get the back of the house of this turning. Okay. Sorry there, I zoomed out for a second. Move over here a little bit. Come in here and put a little bit of indication of wood. Just adds a little bit more detail to it. You know, you can do this with a nice thick and thin line. Okay, just like that. I think that's pretty good. So now I'm just going to leave it alone and walk away from it. Okay, nice little piece. Okay, so that's it. I'll be right back. I'm going to scan it for a little bit, and then we'll come in and do a tonal of it. Awesome. Hi guys, welcome back. So what I did is I have my line drawing all finished now, and I went and scanned it actually so I can use it later. I always scan a line drawing just in case I want to use it in Photoshop or I want to be able to duplicate it, because the technique I'm going to show you working with Prisma Color, once I go back into this, I'm not going to be able to get a line drawing out of it. So what I'm going to do right now, I tend to do this. You might not have to when you're working on tracing paper or vellum, but I have to go back in and tape. My hands get a little calmy or sweaty, I guess you'd call it, from concentrating and working. So I usually come back in and tape my image back down on just a white piece of 11 by 17 paper. And so that's what I have right here. And just a little secret when you're taping, you want to start from one corner and push out. This is how you always keep your image nice and flat. Okay, you never do two opposite corners. This way, my hand right now over on the right here, it's pressing the whole entire image down. Okay, and this way I avoid any type of bubbles in my piece. Okay, and I have a really thin basic Scotch tape that you can buy. It's real thin though, it's only like 1/4 of an inch, and this really allows me to come in and tape some of my drawing down. So now I'm going to work my way this way as I press down with both hands, and I'm making sure it's a nice clean see-through tape that works really well. Okay, as I go across here, I'm going to come over to this far corner here, get this tape down. I've learned a lot about taping because I've done this so many times when working, that if you don't tape correct, you get bubbles in your paper. And if you get bubbles or bends where the paper rolls a little bit, what ends up happening is as you're working, you could actually hit it and smear it a little bit. Now see right there, I got a little bit of a bubble there. So all I'm going to do is just really lightly come in here, take my X-Acto knife, and pull up this piece of tape really slowly. Okay, because I haven't really pushed it down officially yet, so I just put it on there really lightly. It comes up really nice. Get it up here. There, now it's up, and then I'm going to sort of just come back over and go across this and push. There we go. So now there's shouldn't be any issue there. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing in this far corner right here. Make sure it's all spread out. Keep my arms sort of here in the middle. Okay, and I'm going to push from the side here going across like that. Okay, there, and it's down. And now once it's down, I'm going to come in basically and start to shade this guy up. I have a little bit of a bend in here. That might have been from this corner here, so I'm going to peel this back a little bit. Perfect. Come back in here and sort of hit this. Actually, I think that might have been the tape was distorted, because I'm looking at it, it has a stretch point in the tape. That might have been my fault from my tape drawer. Some of my tape pieces end up hitting each other. So there we go. I have my frame there. And now what I'm going to do, it's all taped down on paper so I can rotate it, and it's on white paper so I can see what's behind it. Okay. And now I'm going to basically come in here and I'm going to start to sketch in a little bit of value, and I'm going to start working in Prisma. So this is one of my favorite techniques that I really enjoy working in. Oop, lens cap fell out there. Let me get that out of the way. Okay, let me zoom in a little bit. There, let me pull it back just a teeny bit here. And basically what I do is I come in and I start just dragging the weight of the pencil. Nothing too major. I'm just going to come down here and flip some of this. Okay, I do this holding the pencil at its side like this. That is a huge factor in this, because sometimes I get these nice little gradations and I can actually pull up a little bit of a highlight, okay, a little bit of reflective light on objects. And working this way allows me to come in and just get some nice little shadow areas to what I want to put down. So I just sort of go across here. I'm not hitting the whole entire area. I'm trying to leave a couple areas open that might be dark or light. When I look at this, sorry to flip it upside down, right here, I'm going to have a darker shadow. My light's coming from left to right here. And so I'm going to come in here. Since I'm right-handed, I have to flip my paper over, so bear with me. I'm going to put in a little bit of shadow on the wall here. Okay. And again, it's a pretty light grade I'm putting down right now. I don't even know if you guys can really notice. Let me see if I can zoom in here. And then what happens is when I go to smear it, it will really darken up drastically. So again, my light's coming left to right, so I'm going to have this darker side here on the chimney. Let's get a little highlight here. Okay, I'm going to come in here and darken the area around this side of the chimney over here. I'm going to have this darkened on the side here. This hay and the roof area here. See if I can't make the roof area a little bit darker. Okay. And then basically this back side of the building is going to have shadow on it too. So I'm going to come in here, push this. Now what happens, what I'm doing now is just basically throwing down this really light tone, and when I smear it, it will smear in with a bunch of my line. Now some of you have learned a technique like this when you're working with you're working with pencil. However, I don't like pencil that much. I don't like the way it loses some of its feeling and smears a little bit. But what I like about this particular pencil here is it's a wax-based pencil, and it tends to hold its values a little bit better. So this is a great technique that a lot of people have used for quite a long time. Come in here, hit some of the ground area. Have some stuff back here. I'm going to fade off a little bit. This is also a fantastic technique for figure drawing as well, and just prop sketching and character sketching. Just drawing overall, there's a lot of people that use this. I actually been really fortunate. I had a guy that was my mentor that I worked with. He came from Disney feature animation. His name is Michael Spooner, and I got to study with Michael, and I also had a chance once to take classes with another gentleman by the name of Paul Felix, and these guys were supposed to be two of the guys that originally founded this sort of technique of drawing with this Prisma Color pencil and using it on tracing paper. But man, it's just a really fantastic technique. Come in here, put a light wash on the clothes, and now watch what's going to happen. I'm going to come in here and hit this now, darken the side of the door. I'm going to smear this with a cloth. And one of the reasons why I had sort of a nice thick and thin line drawing was because as I smear it, it's going to dull itself down right now, and you're about to see that. So rule number one, just a normal, nice, basic Kleenex. Take a nice Kleenex. Don't use anything trashy, okay? Let me pull out here so you can see all this. And it's early morning. Get a good sip of your coffee before you dive in. Okay. All right. And now here's where the fun part begins. Put a little light grade here. There. Okay. Now you come in with your Kleenex, and I'm just going to come in and start smearing along the edge, and you'll watch the values jump up pretty quick. Okay. So I'm using a Kleenex now. I also, when I do this technique, I have a bunch of stumps that I use sometimes. Some are thicker, smaller. I have a real thin one here. I don't use the stumps as much. They're just there as a tool to sort of finesse a little bit. But it's there, and I can use it when I need to. So I know some of you that have had traditional drawing classes, they teach a technique very similar to this, but working with paper and in graphite pencil. And I just had a hard time really getting into that. It never really worked. The smearing part of that never really worked too good for me. A little bit of a line there that I hadn't really figured out, but I'll come back to that. So you notice sometimes after I smear, I get this dirt on the Kleenex. I flip to another area of the Kleenex, and the reason why is it's clean, because sometimes this waxy content gets filled with wax on the fiber of the Kleenex, and I can't see it smear anymore. It doesn't work as well. Versus on a new spot of Kleenex, it works very well. It's weird, but you feel like after you do this for a lot of years, you can write a little dissertation, a little paper on how to use Kleenex properly. Okay. This technique, and then it starts to break through like that, so now it's time to switch again. This technique works really great. Now, we did a real tight line drawing. Once you get really good at this technique, guess what happens? You do this all in one piece. Your rough turns into a line drawing, and it has a nice rough edges on it, and then you work from the rough and you go right into working in value. And when you do that, you end up having a lot nicer features and attributes to your piece because it looks a little bit more gestural. It doesn't look as planned out. But for learning this is the best way to learn. This is exactly how I learned. I used to come in and clean up every drawing, and I used to do a bunch of these drawings as practice. I would sit at my lunch break, and I basically would come in and I would sketch out interiors of rooms and restaurants, and I would just come in and start. I'm going to use my stump here on this little piece of rope that's hanging down here, so that way I don't get too much of it smeared around. Okay? And then I can come in and sort of darken some different areas in here. So what's cool is you can see how my value's starting to work now. I have this really sort of light graded value on here. Let me punch a little bit of this top here and get some of this in as well. Cool. Love this technique. And so now it's basically turned into like a 40% graded value on this whole piece, which is nice. And the secret to this technique now is coming in and being able to chisel off highlights, and then coming in after the highlights are done and coming back in with a pencil and putting in a little bit more darks to anchor it down. So for highlights, you take your electric eraser. Here's some of the other erasers that I use as well. I think I mentioned these before to you. This is a company called Sanford, S-A-N-F-O-R-D. It's called Tough Stuff Eraser. It's really thin, a little bit of eraser tube right there. It works really fantastic. And then I like this too. This is the Pentel Click Eraser. It's pretty basic, and it clicks out. And you can actually take your X-Acto knife and cut an angle of this off like this and get a nice sharp edge on it, so it makes it really fantastic for erasing. Now, the other night I had dinner with two buddies of mine who are still working professionally in the industry, and I'm not working in-house for studios anymore. I just work freelance, and then I've been teaching a lot. And one of the things we were talking about was how a lot of studios are moving to completely traditional medium. And that is true. The Cintiq is huge. It's everywhere. And people are moving that way. And does it make a technique like this lost? Not necessarily, because I know a lot of artists at Disney are still using this technique. Okay, and there are a lot of artists who learned techniques like this when they were working at studios have now become directors. And those artists a lot of times love seeing drawings done in this technique because it has a nice soft feel and a very comfortable approach to it. So I was talking to my buddies, and I asked them, I said, I don't think it's time to abandon any of this. And I said, oh, no, don't abandon. If anything, it's usually when people jump into working digitally that never come from a traditional background of having this experience of getting to come in here and basically knock things out and work quickly. Okay, because a drawing like this, if I was working at a studio, I could produce something like this in a rough, nice gestural format and probably, an hour to an hour and a half time frame, okay, which is pretty cool. So if I'm in an 8-hour day, that means I could knock out probably in the neighborhood of 5 very good roughs, depending if I want to eat my lunch at my table or not, okay? All right, so now that I have this nice value locked in, the cool thing about this technique is now I could come in and start removing some highlights out of here. Okay, so let's just start with a couple highlights. Let's say lights coming from left to right here hitting some rocks. Okay, so what I can do is, let me grab my eraser. The other tool I forgot to show you about is my kneaded eraser. Here it is. Mine's pretty black. I actually have kneaded erasers I use this is what it looks like when you get it new. It's gray. Okay, this is what it looks like when you use it for a lot of years. This one's pretty black, but I still use it. And then I have one that's blue as well. It's like a light blue. And so I know they're self-cleaning when you pull them apart like this, but actually part of the wax content, this is actually clean. It just keeps it. So what I can do is take my kneaded eraser now, and I can come in and start pulling some little highlights in here. Okay, so if you look at this rock right here, I come back in here, and I can start to chisel off some highlights. And when I do that, it starts to create sort of this nice value structure of dark and light. So I have a highlight hitting one side, a light area on the other. And then I can come back with my pencil and sort of lightly hit one side and push back a little bit more value and create a little bit of dark against light, and see how those rocks start to pop there. Okay, so that's pretty much the great thing about this technique is it's quick. Okay, and it's really nice, rough way. I worked with a couple really great designers, and know a couple great designers who are now up at Pixar, and they use this technique all the time for doing their story sketching, and they also use this technique for doing character development sketches as well. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come through there and just start chiseling off. I might, if light's coming this way, I might have a little bit of indication of light wrapping around some of the shape. So maybe I have a little bit of light coming in here and sort of coming around this edge here. A little bit of a highlight right here. Okay. But at the same time, I'm going to have a little shadow. So this is where I need to come in here and have a little dark side underneath here. That's what I like about this, is it's so fast. So I literally just dragged my pencil there a couple times, and I can come in with my Kleenex and just sort of... On the next lecture, we'll talk a little bit more about lighting and value a little bit, but as I continue to work in here, all I'm basically doing is I'm starting to push and pull shapes. I'm pulling shapes forward and pushing them down. Okay, now, as light's coming left or right here, I have this little shadow I was saying I was going to put in here on the side. And go ahead and drag the rest of this out, like so. So it looks like there's light hitting that side of the building. Okay, I'm going to come in and pull a little bit of light out of some of these other edges, these little angles here. Okay, even though this is rope and it might be darker, that's totally fine. I can still come in here and push and pull on here. And I just lost my pencil. There it is. Covered it up with paper. If you guys like drawing traditionally, I'll give you a little secret. Best pencil sharpener in the world that you can buy. My experience have been with the Panasonic AutoStop. Okay, if you want to go ahead and write that down. Panasonic AutoStop pencil sharpeners, excellent. They're about $30 US. Sometimes you can find them a little bit cheaper if you look at Staples or whatnot. Sometimes they go on sale. No matter what another brand says, do not buy it. It's nothing compared to the Panasonic. Okay, so now I can come out. I got my little electric Cicero here, and I can sort of pull up lots of highlights from my hay right here. Okay, do you see that hay popping a little bit? And what's cool about this technique is that if I ever pull up something too much, I can come back in, or if I erase a line, I can just darken it again. And I can hit underneath it. This really gives me a lot of flexibility for working. Okay. So now you can see that hay popping a little. I'm going to come over here and pop some of it. Okay, cool. So now where I hit those highlights, I'm just going to brush a little bit of dark value, just really lightly, just literally stroking the pencil across underneath it. And you'll see that start to push some of those highlights up a little bit more to indicate the hay there. And then if I come over, now here's a decision. Remember, if I smear it, it gets darker, right? But sometimes now I might just leave part of the pencil down and lightly smear it. I might not need too much information there for a highlight, okay? And then what I'm going to do next here, I want to darken underneath here because I know this is getting hit, and then I'm going to have a little bit of reflective light back in here. Okay, so I'm going to come in. I know underneath this hay, since it's basically, here, use my coffee cup as an example. Here's my coffee cup, okay? This hay is basically overlapping it like this, okay? And since it's overlapping it, it's going to get darker underneath this back side here, okay? So I hope that makes sense. If you can see this, imagine this is the hay on top of my hand, and it's going to get darker underneath this area where it's being covered. So I need to come in here on this wall and I just put my pencil on its side, and I'm just going to start to darken up some of the hay that's underneath there, and that's going to help those little highlights pop forward. Okay, so a lot of the principle that I'm starting to work with now, I call it pushing and pulling of shapes. Basically, where I come in and start to darken up little areas and create these nice little gradations that naturally exist on objects and elements. Okay, so I'm going to come in here. Let me get this side here. Put a little bit of a highlight here. There's a couple really amazing artists out there. There's a couple guys at Sony Feature that do this technique that are total masters at it. Marcelo Vignali is one of them. He's an amazing artist. Armand Serrano is another one who's a really, really nice guy, amazing artist too, just like Marcelo. It's really cool. You can see how these guys are, they have really fascinating blogs if you want to check them out too. I'm trying to rush this through and get it done in a certain time frame here for us, but that's okay. We'll take our time. And what's cool too is I can start coming in and penciling in. Once I get the values to feel the way I want them, okay, I can use this pencil for creating textures. Now, I'm going to come up here and make it a little bit darker, gradating up. This is what I talked about a minute ago about gradations. Is it, since there's so many items over here against this wall, it's going to be the wall is going to be darker behind it because there's objects covering up areas of light. And then that gradation is going to sort of gradate up and come up a little bit. And, you know, that's the type of detail you eventually get into with this pencil. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and darken this rope a little bit here. This rope tends to be, I'm just going to make that decision to try that right now. Okay, and let me keep working in here. I'm going to pull out some a little bit reflective edges on some of these shapes in here. So even though some of this is in shadow on the back side here, zoom in a little bit here for you. Okay, even though this is on shadow, it's still going to have reflective qualities. Light's going to come in and bounce and come back and hit part of these edges. And by me highlighting the edges like this, it just helps to indicate that these are actual shapes that have reflective light hitting different facets of them. Okay, and this will help round the shape of this desk here a little bit. And let's say I wanted to come in and put like a big highlight. That's one of the downfalls using the electric eraser is it pulls it all the way down to the white of the paper. And that's okay though. If I pull it all the way down, guess what I could do? Take my Kleenex and just rub a little bit on top and it pushes it back down a little bit. So I don't have to worry about getting too bright in certain areas. Okay? Come in here and hit a little bit of this reflective light on that ledge right there and try to pop it. Okay? Same thing here. I'm going to put a little bit of a highlight up there on that door corner and then sort of fade it off a little. Just like that. And I'm going to come in here and darken underneath this little ledge here. So, you know, what we're doing now is you're starting getting into what I call rendering and noodling, where you're noodling little bits of value and gradations and detail in here and try to make some surface variations of what's happening on here. Okay. Now, I can really come in and I'm going to start to noodle some of the detail on this desk. I want this desk to feel a little important, right? I don't want it to get lost into what's happening here. So what I'm going to do is, this is where I come in and I'm going to put some cool highlights and darks in there. So I take my eraser here, okay, my electric eraser. I'm going to flip it upside down, the eraser part, because it's a nice extreme cut edge right there. It's really flat, so that gives me a really nice highlight. And then I'm going to come in here and see if I can't punch in a couple highlights on a couple objects. Without those highlights, they're going to get lost, and they're not going to be able to read. And I'm going to come in with my pencil here and hit some darks on the back side a little bit to help anchor some of those down a little. Add some type of stripe here. I was thinking that was some type of detail. So I'm just going to come on top of it here, darken it up a little bit, because then there's a little highlight underneath it.